What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Slanted Attic Experience. This is episode 52, and today's conversation covers what actually happens before the lights turn on, after the season ends, and long after the jersey comes off. I'm joined this week by Ben, a former collegiate athlete with over 15 years in competitive sports who transitioned from personal training into a career in defense contracting. In this episode, we break down the realities of playing college football, how the recruitment process really works, and the differences between high school and college locker room culture, training, and facilities. We also get into fitness, injuries, rehab, and how modern medicine and performance science are shaping the future of athletics. From there, we branch out into technology, early phones, cryptocurrency, and what it means to build a career and identity beyond the field. Let's dive right in. But anyways, welcome back, everybody. We're delighted to present you episode number 53, 54-ish. We're in the 50s now, but super excited to have Ben on this week. Looking forward to it since the bachelor trip. When was that, man? That feels so long ago that we chatted about this.
April, maybe?
Yeah,
that was a while ago.
So anyways, without further ado, Ben, if you want to give the listeners a little bit of information about yourself, who you are, what you like, passions, interests, something like that.
Yeah, for sure. I'm Ben. I was born and raised in Virginia. I bumped into some of Tyler's friends around college. That's how I ended up meeting him. I went to small school near the beach, played football in college. So I know a little bit about sports, a little bit about football, a little bit about exercise, working out, I guess. I enjoy doing that. I currently work for a defense contractor. And I've done that pretty much since a year or two after college. I was a personal trainer for a little bit before there, but decided I had to get a real job,
Yeah.
And then I've been doing that ever since. I don't know what I'll do in the future. I don't know if I'll be here forever, but gonna try to progress on that route. I don't know. I like a lot of different things: sports, finance, typical guy in his mid to late 20s, I guess we are now, right?
Yep. Oh, yeah. No, how did you get into working for a defense contractor? Was that kind of something you wanted to do right out of school? Because obviously it seems like you wanted to do something with athletics, personal training, something like that. Obviously, like you make it big time, that doesn't really pay the bills, so to speak, especially in today's economy. So
yeah, for sure. I grew up playing football, always wanted to play football in college. I knew that. Would have loved to play in the league, as they say,
man.
but I think that's everybody's dream, right? And when I knew there was going to be some point where I couldn't play,
Sure.
and I had to focus on something else. I think that whether it's government, military, Department of Defense, anything like that, I think those jobs are somewhat important and meaningful. I feel like when I go to work, obviously every job has something mundane, some boring aspect, but I feel like for the most part, when I go to work, I feel like, okay, I'm at least contributing something to society and or the world. So I didn't necessarily seek it out, but my brother actually, he was in the military, and he knew a guy in his unit who worked for this company, and had me sit down and talk to him for a little bit. And then I onboarded with that company. Took a long time, just like most of those jobs do, but onboarded with that company. Like I said, it was right around when college ended, but because it took so long, I was a personal trainer until that was successful, until I was able to start that job. So
That's kind of cool.
I did the training. I was gonna say I did the training gig just because I had played football and worked out for a while. And I was like, it was a fun job.
Yeah. Something you're interested in. I mean, the human body health is a good passion, as well as finding a career path that suits you. I think, finding a balance between life outside of work and work is an important thing, unless you're one of those fortunate people that get to do what you absolutely love as a career, And that's, there are people out there that do that, but for those of us that do not, it's good, and it's also good to find something else in a career-wise that you're passionate about, maybe in a different way. But let's talk about football a little bit. The college atmosphere. Walk me through that. The locker room. I mean, you know, football is a great, I think, like, you know, as a dude, like a bonding experience between like a group of like people trying to compete and win together. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
always thought athletics was one of the most important things I did throughout my childhood because it just how working together with a team and figuring out how to create those relationships and connections to like bring out the best in somebody else to achieve a common goal. Always loved
Yeah.
that. Never got the chance to play at a collegiate level. Um, would have loved to do so. I would not be here talking to you because I would have never went to Virginia Tech. I would have went to a smaller school, probably pitched
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
played, you know, second base, outfield, whatever. Um, and then I wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be on the Slanted Attic Experience. But yeah, kind of tell me about that a little bit. Like what was that like? Do you miss it? I'm sure you do. I mean, I miss. I want to find a league to play in, man, around here.
Yeah.
Something.
Yeah. You got
I play
gotta do
golf.
something. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I was gonna say the whole. I could really, I guess, start. I had played it my whole life, like I said, and I knew I had
Yeah,
wanted to play in college. I knew I was pretty good, um, and I knew I had the ability to play in college. I just didn't really know where I was going to end up. If I could rank myself honestly, I was probably between a one AA and a D3 type of athlete.
sure.
So probably good enough to play at a bigger small school, and good enough to play at a D2 or D3. Um, but something I didn't realize that much coming out of high school, and let's say I'm sure it's similar in every sport, maybe not, maybe different to differing degrees, I guess. But and it really is a business. I mean, even now more than anything else. But
Yeah.
that business starts even in high school. So a lot of guys, at least when we were in high school, 2012 through 2016, really. Um, a lot of guys would transfer to schools that were good and schools that would win a lot of games, win state titles, which I always thought was fine. I didn't really care about. But what I didn't realize is a lot of those players were also transferring to high schools with good coaches that had been tenured there for a while and coaches who had made college connections.
Yeah.
My coach, especially my junior, well, I had a coach up to my sophomore year, and then we got a new head coach junior and senior year, which is fine. He was a good dude, but he was a brand new coach, so he didn't come with any prior connections.
Hmm.
So I had plenty of interest coming out of high school, but interest does not turn into money. So I only got a handful of monetary offers,
Hmm.
um, none of which I liked enough or didn't like the school enough. It's funny because some of these schools can offer you money, but the school's absolutely garbage, or it's just not an area you want to go, or it just
It's not
depends.
the right fit.
Yeah, that's fair. That's a good way to put it. So I ended up going to a smaller school, got a little bit of money, but I think it worked out in terms of playing, the amount I got to play, and
Hmm.
overall school experience.
Yeah.
But in terms of atmosphere in the locker room, all that kind of stuff, it's funny because high school you will play both sides of the ball. You're bonded with a lot of guys that you grew up with. Life is good. Life is fun. Like your Friday nights, you're out there getting it with your boys.
Yeah.
And then college, it's much more meticulous in the way that it's run. And there's probably 120 dudes on a team, which I would say is pretty normal. You travel maybe 75.
Okay.
So guys who are not in the too deep usually don't travel. Um, but it is almost, well, it really is, to be honest. It's two teams within a team. Offense and defense it's almost like two separate teams.
Really.
I had friends, so I played defense in college, and I had plenty of friends that were on the team that played offense, but I maybe saw them once a week when we would go out after a game or something.
Right. Yeah.
Practices, you pretty much practice separately until you come together for you have inside run, which is like O line, D line, linebackers, and running backs. You have 7-on-7
Hmm.
portions of practice, which I'm sure you know what that is. And then you have, like a little team segment usually at the end. So we compete against them at the end,
Sure.
but I'm not really seeing them. We're all in our own separate meetings. I never interacted with the offensive coaches pretty much at all.
Really?
Yeah, I don't even interact with them. You're like, oh, I'm surprised you know my name. Even if you're like a starter, like it's like, oh, my team is the defensive team. It's kind of crazy, and I'm sure at these major universities, it's that extended even further and even bigger. But yeah, there were it really was like two, it's almost two different teams, and I was a part of one, and they were part of the other, which is
Yeah.
great. And we all bonded as a team when we would win or we would lose, or offense would do well or defense would do well. But yeah, you played half the game and you cheered on your other team half the game. Where like it's, but that was an interesting component of college. I hadn't really anticipated going in. Even the locker room setup, how we did it, we tried to sit similar positions next to each other. So I was a linebacker, so I sat near most of the linebackers. So that mid game, not mid game, but halftime, coaches, our position coaches could come in and break down what
Right.
adjustments we needed to make. He just go to the locker room in the section that we were in. So it kind of made sense that way. But in terms of bonding with the whole rest of the team, it was
Yeah.
a little less, a little, just a little different. But I mean, those guys, some of those guys, nice, and the
Yeah.
atmosphere in the locker room in general is like nothing else. It's good group of dudes, funny group of dudes. It's
Yeah, I'm
you get a
sure.
ton of dudes around. It's some
I'm
funny
sure.
guys doing some crazy things, but it's a good time.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell me about a little more about like the practicing. Like, so this is what, as I age as an NFL fan, I start to understand a little bit more about defensive and offensive schemes. I'm still dumb, but I play Madden and I kind of
Yeah, it's
understand
okay.
what the plays are kind of doing. So, like,
Yeah,
what do you do in practice to combat that? Because I'm sure you guys still do like all the athletic like tackling drills and like running, oh my god, like cone drills and shit like that. I'm sure you're doing all kinds of agility and
yeah.
actual like football tactic drills. But like, what does it look like in terms of like figuring out how to run a defense effectively, whether it be like man to man or zone or like and how to make those adjustments, I guess. Like, do you practice that in
Yeah.
practice? Is that more of a game sense thing? Like, you know what I
No,
mean?
yeah, it's one of those things where all throughout training camp, over the summer training camp, and then going into the first game of the season, we have our base defensive packages. Um, I can give you an example. For my university, we had 3 to 4 base defensive packages, and that includes 3-4, 4-3, 5-2. All those are our defensive packages. Nickel, dime, and we probably have a lot more than three. Major ones, probably had 4 or 5. These are just packages, personnel packages, really. We had specific plays and specific calls, and all we would do out of each one of those. But as each week came, we would get the opponent's film. Coaches, they spend the whole weekend breaking down the film pretty much, and we get an idea of how their offense is based and what they run. When they do that, we then tailor our defensive schemes for that week to that offense. So let's say, this is a very spread team. All they do is run. If they're running the ball, it's inside, outside zone, or they're doing quick passes, stuff like that. So we might have a 5-2 defense and never even use it that week. We're going to stick to maybe a 3-3, swap out some outside linebackers with a little faster, smaller, faster guys to combat all the passing, or just change things up according to what the scheme is going to be. We will usually install not only personnel packages but plays for that week specifically. So we have our base plays, and then we'll have specific plays for that week. Coaches will see a vulnerability in certain areas, certain play schemes, and they'll be like, "All right, this is what we're going to use to attack it. This is going to be a new play." And that's how we're going to do it. The complicated aspect about I guess the defense that we ran was we would have plays in which you knew your responsibility on each play, but the play that we had installed would not only change based on what defensive front we were in. So if we were in a maybe a 3-3 or a 4-3,
Mm-hmm.
if I was an outside linebacker, we would call one play, but my responsibility would be different based on what front we were in.
Sure.
And I had to be aware of that. Also, my responsibility would completely change based on what the offense came out in. That's another big thing where I think, I mean, I play both offense and defense, and I think defense is way more difficult because defense is purely reactionary.
It's
So I might
defense.
have a
Defense
exactly,
the hardest, dude. The attacker, I feel like, has
exactly.
all the advantages always in every
Yeah,
single scenario throughout history and books
yeah,
and whatever.
yeah, a little bit, and especially like mentally. Like I said, if we had a play called, and to break it down really in a real simple sense, if I was blitzing off the edge maybe, and they came out with doubles my way or trips my way or something like that. Okay, now that play changes. I now have a coverage responsibility. I have to know what my coverage responsibility is in that play in that front, and someone else is blitzing. So the whole defense kind of has to communicate in that sense. But that was a long-winded answer to answer your first
No,
question of
that
that's
was
kind
a
of how we.
phenomenal answer. But do you guys have different like call signs or like phrases or something you use when you might have to cover the flat when you're supposed to be blitzing on a zone coverage play or something like that? You know, the three guy or the inside the X. Would you
It's
have
one of those
phrases or
things.
they put up like is it like the all the pictures on the board thing? You know what I mean?
it's
That you
it's
see
one
on
of those
TV.
things. I was gonna say it's one of those things, especially on defense. Your responsibility changes to the point where, like, a coach is gonna call a play, linebacker, whoever else is disseminating the play to the rest of everybody. He calls it out as the offense comes out in their front. You would make the adjustments as needed. If maybe in that scenario I gave you, maybe I'm no longer blitzing as an outside linebacker, I need to look at the inside linebacker and make sure he understands he's blitzing. But he can. It's not one of those things where the coach says, "Okay, now you guys like." It's one of those where you're supposed to know,
Right.
and if they don't know, you need to subtly communicate. It's subtle communication because you also can't be like, "Hey, you're blitzing" right in front of
Right.
the
Right.
offense.
Right. Right. Right.
So it's one of those things we got to acknowledge each other and realize what's going on as it's happening.
Yeah, team aspect, man. No,
Yeah,
that's phenomenal. Yeah, I've always wondered what it's like because I feel like football and basketball are the two sports that get the most funding, even at smaller schools, I would say. So like
yeah,
it's interesting to see what that step up from high school to college is because I
yeah,
bet you it's a whole different experience. I mean, in terms of like trainers and
yeah,
travel and facilities, you know.
yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I got to see a lot of it during the recruiting process because
Oh, I bet that was cool.
no matter whether a coach thinks you can come play or not, if you're even on the radar, they'll show you everything. It does nothing
No,
but promote
sure.
their team. Anyway, so I got a lot of 1-day visits. They call them, at least they did back then. I feel like an old man saying this, but got them 1-day visits, stuff like that back then where it's basically like, hey, you can come if it's during the season. They would let you come to a game. You get a tour of all their facilities. You get to maybe eat in the specialized dining halls they have. And so I did a lot of that with some of these big universities, and this is before NIL.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, you can only imagine what it is now. But they had some of the craziest things. My favorite one I toured by far was Clemson.
Clemson.
Um,
Yeah,
and I
that was
mean,
that was cool.
even back then, basically and it's everything you see on TV, but more so. Every major athletics program, football especially, the athletes kind of live in there. You know, their locker room. I'll just use Clemson for example. Locker room was ridiculous. Um, of course, I'm sure you see videos and pictures, but every day they would go to the locker room. They would get their gear for practice. Do these little every you like walk into these little lockers. You take the gear that you need for practice that day, and then you go to the locker room.
Oh, you don't
That's
even have
all.
to think about it. They just give you
No,
what you need every
no.
day.
Their equipment managers assign, give you what you have. But the thing with Clemson is, they at least back then they had a Nike deal or whatever. So
Yeah.
I mean, they're getting, they have cleats and stuff that I'm sure they like to use and stuff. But if they wanted new cleats, anytime get them. They would get new gloves once a weekish, once every 2 weeks. Get these new gloves, and they anything imaginable.
Yeah. Sure.
So all that equipment is ridiculous. I went to the locker room. The locker room was crazy. It's crazy because I was big into lifting back then because I wanted to play in school, and so I went and looked. I did this during the
Mm-hmm.
spring going into my senior year, and I guess they had just maxed out or something for the spring. So I went and looked at the linebackers max out numbers, and they still like even still thinking about them, they still blow my mind.
Do you
For like
remember
yeah,
what
these
what
like
any of them were?
third or fourth string linebackers putting up ridiculous numbers. It was they had just front squatted. So they had just front squatted max out, and their linebackers front squats were like 550 to 600
Jeez.
on a front squat,
Yeah,
which
that's what I'm saying. I couldn't even do half that on a
add
back squat.
200, yeah, add 200 pounds to a back squat. You know, these linebackers are probably hitting 700, and I don't know if these guys are playing. You know,
That's
which is crazy. But
crazy.
they had an indoor in their weight room facility. They had a huge like juice bar, which is like, you know, they go straight from the weights to the shakes, whatever they're
Yep.
getting.
Yep.
Okay, all of this is built into the stadium. They had their own dining hall facilities. This was some I thought was really cool. With Clemson, they had their own dining hall facilities in the stadium as well, and they would go there to eat. And they had it set up so strength coach or position coach, if you needed to gain weight, you would go to a specific color table, and they had all their chefs there pretty much, you know, all hours of the day. And their chefs make you a meal so that you gain weight. And if you need to lose weight, you go to a different color table. And their chefs make you food so you can lose weight. You know,
Yeah.
I think that's pretty standard. I'm sure that's pretty standard in big schools. But you know, I got to talk to some of their players and all and everything. Every player got a moped. You
A
know, it's a
moped.
little like yeah. I was gonna say this 10 years ago at the
Yeah.
time, but you know, they had their own little Vespas to get around campus. But
Kind of funny.
yeah, man, it's one of those things where yeah, if they wanted it, especially I'm sure if they're a big time player, they got it.
Yeah. Yeah, I was under the
Which is
table too.
a lot of that stuff. I mean, you source it out as like, okay, we have motorized scooters for the team, for
Right.
coaches, for anything like that. It's like,
Oh,
oh, this is a
absolutely.
recruiting incentive, you know?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
I'm not disregarding it because absolutely the players need some form of compensation or something, man, with the media rights and the money that these schools are making off this
yeah,
shit. Like these guys are the prime subject of the sport every weekend, every Saturday, or whether you play
yeah.
like an off night game. But
I was gonna say I had a buddy who played at JMU, and a lot of people don't realize if you were any level of Division One or decently big school, you would get what's called a stipend. Anyway, it's basically like they would pay for living expenses, all this stuff,
mhm.
but it ended up being around 5 or 6 grand a month. So they were still getting money alongside their scholarship. It just was not like, you know, 1.5 million like an NIL deal would be. Um, so yeah. I mean, I'm sure you've talked about it plenty. There's more money in that sport than you can imagine.
Oh yeah, it's been the subject of multiple conversations over the last probably 2 dozen podcasts. Ever since it became a big thing, I think middle of last year they started passing all kinds of laws and adopting what is it? The state? What is it? The revenue sharing model where they can
Yeah,
pay the players directly, and then that kind of exploded. But I think like the majority of our conversation, yes, that's interesting, and they need to regulate that to a lot of degrees. But the more interesting part is the transfer portal, and you don't have to have any alliance to any team anymore. You can just be like, all
yeah,
right, can I do marginally better at a marginally better school? See you guys later, like, or follow a
yeah,
coach, or like, you know. And that's, I think, just the turnover in collegiate football, especially, is crazy nowadays. I mean, I read an article today I was looking at. Virginia Tech brought in like 16 players in the transfer portal. West Virginia brought in like 30. You know,
hmm
Louisville's entire basketball roster this year was from the transfer portal. Like, it's crazy how this is happening. Like, I don't know. You just throw money at them. And I mean, they're not, I mean, I would take it too. Are you kidding me? If somebody offered me that kind of money to go play sports somewhere, I'd be like, okay, I'll come there. You know what I mean? Like, I don't
yeah,
fault the kids for it at all, you know?
yeah.
It's just the system that's a little bit broken. But yeah, I don't even know,
Yeah.
man. It's wild. It's wild the
I
way they
think
set
yeah,
up.
I think NIL is great, and I think NIL should have been there for a long time. But I think NIL in combination with the transfer portal is not great.
Yeah. No, I'm all for
So
these kids getting paid 100%.
yeah,
Like I said before, they're the subject of the entire day of sport. You know what I mean? It's 3 hours you're watching these guys play football, and they deserve to
yeah,
be compensated for that. Um, but yeah, there's the way they have it set up is just not healthy for the system, I don't think, and for the development of college athletes. But I forget who used Bashal Tootin from UNC as an example. I think it was D Mills in 40 episode 41. And he's like, not Bashal Tootin. What's his face from UNC? I can't remember his name. Never mind. He's just a player that probably wouldn't get drafted in the first 4 rounds in the NBA draft, but was able to make another like $200,000 from playing additional. Armando Baycott, that's right,
yeah, yeah,
at UNC. He got to play an extra year and made another 200 grand, and now he can go play in the G League or like make some money playing basketball, or if he's smart, move on to a career path and do that. But you get 200 grand for playing an extra season. It's kind of
I
wild.
did the same thing. Yep,
Yeah.
do the same thing.
Absolutely. But yeah, okay. So let's continue the football conversation, but move more on to like the health aspect, the lifting. You said you've been involved in that for a long, long time. I'm assuming through high school you were also eating healthy and doing the exercise experience, for lack of a better phrase. Tell me about how that's impacted your life. I think it's important to stay healthy. Eat a balanced diet. I'm having a little trouble because uh, I did my wisdom teeth
Yeah,
and I put lactose back into my diet. I was off lactose for like 2 months because it fucks with my stomach.
yeah,
Um, and yeah, the last 2 weeks I've been eating like pizza because it's kind of soft and like mac and cheese and stuff like that. And I'm like, I don't want the dairy free stuff. It just doesn't taste as good. And I'm like,
yeah,
yeah. So I've had it the last few weeks and I need to readjust. I mean, I drink like plant protein and do all that stuff because I don't do the milk whey concentrate. But yeah, tell me about how that's impacted your life. And, I'm sure up through football, it's been meaningful and has helped you in a lot of ways throughout that
yeah,
path.
yeah, for sure, man. I mean, I was always athletic because I was always playing sports, all different kinds of sports growing up. But
Do you play everything for the most part?
yeah, I played football, baseball, soccer, basketball, but then
Yeah.
dwindled down to just football by the time I got to later high school. Um, I started lifting in eighth grade, really end of eighth grade. So going
Hmm.
into freshman football, I started lifting, which I
Yeah,
think was
going
a
into
good
high
time.
school.
Yeah, I think it was a good time to do it. I did it a very incorrect way. I didn't really know what I was doing. I had, strength coaches that I would go and see, and they would give me good programs. But
Hmm.
my dad had a weight set in his garage, so I just went out there and lifted 24/7 as much as I could. Going into high school, we had a lot of big, strong dudes in high school um, that were lifting crazy numbers even for high school.
Sure.
Um, and so I wanted to be like them by the time I was 18, by the time I was a senior. So from 14 to 18, I really focused on it. I got, I knew I needed to gain weight as well. I came into high school at 165. I played running back and linebacker. The guys ahead of me, they were a little bit taller than me. I'm about 6'1", they're about 6'3", but they're playing linebacker and they were sitting at 230, 240.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, and they were getting real strong looks from Tech, JMU, those kind of schools. So I was like, all right, if I want to be on that path, I'm 6'1", but I need to weigh close to that. I need to get that strength,
Sure.
somewhat similar to that as well. So I really pushed it in those 4 years. I gained a lot. I got to 230 by my senior year of high school. My junior year, I was sitting at like 218, 220. So
That's a
my
good weight.
sophomore year to my junior year, I gained the most. I probably
Hmm.
gained too much because it was a little more fat than I would have liked. But then senior year, I only gained 10 more pounds, but then cut out some of that fat. So senior year, I was a much better athlete overall in general. But I really pushed it. Like I said, I had to eat. I had the whole MyFitnessPal
Yeah.
app, and I used to track everything I ate pretty much for 4 years, and it was disgusting. I ate more than I ever wanted to eat, and tried to lift as much as possible doing that.
Sure. Sure.
Good and bad thing is that, it did work. It is effective. Calories in, calories out is a math formula, so it is effective.
Yep.
Um, but
Unit of
in the
energy.
same, yeah, exactly. In the same sense, I mean, I was pushing it so much to the point where I had a lot of injuries, whether they were lifting related or just running related or football related. I still had
Yeah.
them. So I went to physical therapy a lot during those years as well, which sucked then, but looking back on it now, taught me a lot about overall health, overall, things to, okay, like I'm feeling a little shoulder impingement. Okay, I know rehab exercises I need to do to kind of work on that. I know what muscles I need to strengthen to kind of correct that. Just based on therapy that I had gone to
Yeah.
growing up. So obviously, college, you have your own lifting program. You can lift on your own outside of that program if you want or need to, but you really don't. But after college, I think it made a really big impact. I liked the way that I looked and felt lifting and running, doing that stuff while I was playing football. So I kind of just never stopped. Obviously, as a grown adult, it's forced to become a hobby rather than something you do all day, every day.
Sure.
So
Absolutely.
it's something I now have to do outside of work, but um, it is something that I love doing. I try to schedule my day around it. So if work starts late, it's like, all right, maybe I can squeeze the gym in the morning, or if work ends at a decent time, I like to go in the evenings. So it's just something that I like to do outside of work, and I don't really see myself stopping unless I'm 90, you know.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. And your body's going to hold up till then if you continue on the current path. I mean,
let's
I've
hope.
heard it. What is it? Longevity is based on a high percentage is based on your bone density, and that's achieved through what is it? Aerobic exercise or anaerobic exercise. So,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, I mean, theoretically, it should translate, and like you probably have less aches and pains. And a lot of people have incorrect posture. They stand incorrectly. Their feet are constrained into shoes. Like a lot of bad foot posture. I've been trying to be in bare feet as much as possible. This entire summer. I've
yeah,
noticed no impact on that. Instead of correcting that at its core, strengthening my feet. There's a lot of like foot exercise and ankle stuff. I have bad ankle mobility too that you can do to help you stand taller and your pelvis. I don't know, a lot of interlocking pieces, and like you said, being able to know those through having experience in physical therapy. I did the opposite. I had elbow surgery in high school, season-ending injury, and I went and got Tommy John surgery out in Ohio. And I
yeah,
rehabbed it, I think, for like 4 months before I left for school, and I still had like another 3, 4 months of rehab. Well, I wasn't as consistent with that, and now what is it, 8 years later, I'm doing it now, but I had issues, not real issues because the muscle healed itself, but I noticed less mobility when doing bench press or stuff or something in that elbow
yeah,
than my left, and my rotator cuff's bad. I have labrum probably stuff going on. My shoulder mobility's bad from baseball. So I've been trying to combat that. Like I said earlier, I have a set of like 3 bands at my desk at work, and I do hip and shoulder stuff at work, and then I'll do the rest of the stuff at the gym or at home to
yeah,
try to work on those deficiencies. But
yeah.
yeah, man.
It it is good. I was gonna say it is good. I think it is very good when you work out for a long period of time, years, because then you do learn your body, especially through injuries, that kind of stuff. I had a good amount of injuries with the weightlifting and stuff.
So upper body,
I
lower body stuff.
Everything. I had two surgeries in college. One was a core muscle repair that was football related, and
Ooh, how
then
was that?
you said what?
I said that must have been wild. How was that?
Yeah, that was
Mm,
kind of
fun.
terrible, to be honest, because I didn't really know what it was, and it took almost 6 months or a year to diagnose until I found a trainer who knew what it was.
Yeah,
And at first, it was just this pain in the bottom center of my abdomen when I would run. It was just this sharp pain, and every time I would run, and
really.
I would relax for a couple weeks, try to let it heal, let it go away, and it would just never heal. And it would never go away. So I had X-rays done, some MRIs done. Anyway, in order to resolve that, my trainer at school he identified it pretty quick because he had seen it before.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, okay, well, the specific injury you have, there's only two people that do surgery on it. He's like, one of them is in Germany and one of them is in Philadelphia. I'm like, oh, that's convenient.
Yeah.
So I went up to Philly, had that surgery. It was considered experimental at the time, but it was cool because he was the only one in the U.S. Who did it. So when I
Yeah.
had that surgery for it, J.J. Watt had the surgery for it. Marshawn Lynch had the surgery for it in the same year. So if you look at those articles, we all had surgery together. And I was with dudes from LSU, from all this kind of stuff. So I was like, this is sick.
Yeah. Right.
you
Right.
know. Anyway, but once I had that surgery, rehab went well, and it healed. It did pretty well. But let's see, the other surgery in my senior year, unfortunately, almost halfway through, I did the ACL meniscus. Typical football.
Yeah.
Um, so that one is the only one I'll probably have long term issues with because simply the fact they had to remove part of the meniscus, which is just cartilage, which will
Mm-hmm.
lead to arthritis. It's not really I can do about that.
What
But
about stem cells?
that would be nice and cool.
My
If
sister
it
had
get
my sister had PRP injections. She has
Yeah,
she has knee and what is it? Oh, the IT band. She has a lot of IT band and knee
yeah,
issues. Yeah, she plays
yeah.
field hockey.
Most people have pretty tight IT bands, so it usually causes a lot of issues. That's something. Honestly, if it bothers me a lot in the near future, and I have some cash to throw at it, I'm sure it's still a little expensive now. But I don't know
Yeah,
how much insurance covers that. I don't know how much
I don't know if
that.
they would at all, honestly, but I
Yeah,
think there are more clinics. The one that Joe Rogan speaks about all the time, I follow their Instagram, and they're popping up kind of all over the place. And it's no
yeah,
longer, it's now ethically sourced stem cells. And yeah, I mean, it's real clinics popping up in the U.S. I don't know how they're able to get around the FDA framework because I thought it was illegal to do here. You'd have to travel out of country, Germany, Mexico, something like that to get
yeah.
it done.
I've heard about
But
that.
I've heard of places in the U.S., so I don't know if that's kind of like off the books kind of thing or what's going on. But honestly, like I've been trying to convince my dad to do that because he has no meniscus in there. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's like bone on bone. You know what I mean? And I'm like,
Yeah,
Dad, and he's gotten the fluids removed a few times. He's got cortisone shots, all the fun, good stuff that happens with knees and knee injuries. The high impact, running a lot. Running is so bad for your knees, but I feel
yeah,
like it's so good. Like I want to do it more.
yeah.
But
No, I
yeah,
understand.
knee injuries, man. I feel like they're
Yeah,
the worst. The worst.
yeah.
Elbow sucked, but knee 10 times worse. I can't imagine.
Knees are tough, especially when you have to get surgery. Because in order to fix something like that, you have to create a new injury. So, anytime they're repairing, I think when I talk to the surgeon, MCL and PCL heal on their own, ACL and LCL do not.
Interesting.
So anytime you're repairing those two, you need a graft from something else. So you
Hmm.
injure another tendon, ligament somewhere else, and use those for your so those are tough because it takes a lot out of your body. But overall, I mean, it's fine. Especially like I wanted to be able to squat heavy, run fast, do jump, and do cuts again. So I put a lot of stress on it as much as I can to make sure it's still good. But if you're just someone who wants to live a normal life, I mean, the surgeries are fine now.
Yeah, so that's what they initially told me because when I went in for evaluation, I got the MRI. It was my tendon was torn off the bone, so it wasn't like it was
Yeah,
torn and they had to like cut it to repair it or anything like that. It was torn off, so it was just kind of hanging around, flapping in there. And they were like, "Look, if you just leave it as is, you're not gonna, you know, be negatively impacted, but
yeah,
you just won't have the same amount of flexion, I guess, in your elbow when you're throwing anything or doing anything. And I guess my parents
yeah,
went through and looked at the insurance cost or whatever, and it was relatively reasonable given my dad's insurance. So I was like, okay, I'd really rather prefer to have it so then I can, be 27 years old and throw a football like I did last weekend.
exactly,
You know what I mean? Like I want to be
exactly.
able to do that. Like I've always been a guy drawn to athletics, and like not having that ability would take away from my quality of life, I think. So you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
no, for
So
for sure. The same thing, and I learned about this too when I tore mine. You can actually live without an ACL, but
I
like
did
you
not know
said,
that.
quality of life is just drastically diminished. Like kiss sports goodbye, you know. But it was the weirdest feelings because like after like a week or two after you tear it, when the I'm sure yours was similar in the elbow, but a week or two after you tear it, when the swelling is down a little bit, you can kind of walk on it. You know, you have a brace and stuff, and you can walk on it, and it doesn't hurt, but it just feels like your knee is not functioning properly. Like that's the best way I could describe it. And like I said, I'm sure the elbow is similar. But like I was just walking and I was like, this is just not like
So weird.
correct.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't hurt, but like so, it's just it's just like this is not right. There's
Yep.
something, yeah, something off.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, it was. I was gonna say I had that was the only other surgery I had, football wise. I had almost every other common one you could have. I had a lot of soft tissue either from football or lifting. Even I told you earlier on talking about weightlifting. I started very idiotically
Hmm.
in weightlifting. So when I first started, I wanted to have like a bigger chest and upper body because you're a boy going from a teenager to an adult.
Of course.
So I was like, okay, well, all of my teammates are benching an insane amount of weight, so I'm just gonna bench and work out my upper body every other day until I get huge. So I went through. I'd
I
never
mean, it's
lifted.
logical. It's logical. I'll give you that. I mean, that's
I
the same thing I would have thought.
I had never lifted before, and I followed a like every now and then I'd have a strength coach, but it was minimal. But anyway, so I went out into my garage and I bench pressed every other day for 6 months, and I did get a lot stronger. But then I had such awful overuse in my like pec tendons that they started to like have overuse tearing, and I'm like 14, so I'm like starting my life in lifting with like overuse tendon injuries, and so I had to stop. I had to stop for a little while
Sure.
just to get that to go away. But I still have some issues every now and then. I have to take breaks because of that, because there's some scar tissue in there. So I have to take breaks and sense that like, okay, I can't overload this too much, or like it's something that I said as well that I'm sure you do is once you lift or work out or do anything for a while, you understand, okay, this joint gets sore a little quicker than the other ones, so I need to back off every 6 to 8 weeks, or something. Everybody's body's a little different, and you kind of fine tune your own workout program and regimen to a point where it works for your body, and I think that's gotten to the point where that's what I'm doing now, and hopefully I can extend for the rest of my workout days.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been having knee issues. I talked about it in another episode too, and I think it's just because of my pelvis, like how my pelvis is situated because of the anterior pelvic tilt. I have really
Yeah, you
tight
mentioned that.
and it puts a lot of pressure on the inside of my knees. And
Yeah,
whenever I drive long distances, I notice the inside of my knee gets really stiff and sore
yeah,
even. And I know I'm just begging for a meniscus or MCL tear or something in
yeah,
there. So I need to correct it before something like that happens because I plan on running around playing volleyball at the volleyball court down the street. I want to play pickup basketball. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
I'm not trying to be in a boot or something like that for 8 weeks.
Yeah, I had an issue with the pelvic. A lot of football players in general have an issue with the pelvic tilt. You can look at them on a football field, and it looks like they're almost sticking their butt out on purpose, but they're not. It's just their pelvic tilted.
Right, they're just standing up. Yeah.
Yeah. But I had an issue with that. What mine did is because the front of the hips go down due to a tight hip flexor, tight quad, it raises the back end, so it compresses the back a little bit, causes back tightness. But also, the issue that I ran into a lot was it elongated the hamstrings.
Mm-hmm.
So running 40-yard dashes with an elongated hamstring causes your hamstring to do more work than the glute is doing, which is not how it's supposed to function. And so it causes you to pop a hamstring. And
Interesting.
it's it hamstring is the worst one to injure in my opinion. I think I did my left one 3 times and my right one twice. So it's a terrible experience because you hurt it, but then within like 2 weeks it feels all right. And so you go do something else and you pop it again. And it's
Yes.
one of those things where it destroys you mentally more than it will ever destroy you physically. And I'm sure
Sure.
everybody who's ever done it can agree with that. But
Yeah, you just pissing
um,
yourself. Come back too soon, whatever, just giving
yeah,
yourself a hard time. Yeah. Yep.
but yeah, that is a common thing with men, that pelvis a little bit.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I have poor posture too, so that doesn't help. And I've been starting to notice it a lot more, which has been great. You can address those issues and do, especially with the wide berth of internet
Yeah.
knowledge we have now. There are reputable sources out there you can learn these exercises from, physical therapy clinics, like esteemed people. I follow Connor Harris on Instagram. He's pretty good. But they give
Okay.
you some sorts of exercises to combat that. But I didn't know that about the elongated hamstrings. I have really tight hamstrings too. I can't touch my toes. I'm
Yeah.
working on that. But so I should be focusing more on the quads then. I guess hip flexors I do.
I mean,
Hip
it
flexors
it
stretching.
it depends. In my case, I just needed to stretch everything out, hips, hip flexors, especially quads, back, and that kind of reduced the tilt and put my hamstrings back at a normal level. But it's just one of those things where any time one muscle is doing extra work for another muscle, it is susceptible of
Yeah.
getting pulled, getting torn. So it's just one of those things where, and the hips are so complicated that any sort of under or over rotation of even a little couple degrees, you'll tweak something.
Yeah, I've been trying to find some good stuff to do while sitting on the office chair. I do one where I hook the band underneath like my left foot and I put it over top of my knee on my right foot and I do like the couch stretch almost while sitting.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that one's good, but I need to find something else I can do while I'm there because I don't get much. I get the stretch, but then I don't get any like resistance training with it. Like the what is it? The why can't I think of it? The machine where you sit there and you push your legs out and then or push them in.
yeah.
Why can't,
Adductor.
yeah, the adductor.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, that one.
So I don't get any of that. So I need to probably do more legs in the gym, is I think what that boils down to. And I'm probably just one of many who are guilty of that atrocity.
I try my best to keep him up, but it's way more fun getting an arm pump.
Oh
I
yeah.
can understand that.
Oh
I
yeah.
understand that for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I want to run like a marathon eventually. I would
Hmm.
like to do that. That would be a fun athletic goal. And then I want to qualify to play into one of the senior events on the senior PGA tour. I want to somehow
Okay.
do. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm like a 7 handicap now. So if I can get it down to a 2 by the time I'm 55, I can play.
You got
I
some
can,
time. You got some
I'm
time
trying to
to.
play in. So that's the goal, man. I got 28
Yeah.
years. Actually, closely approaching 27 years left, but
Yeah, I
we
feel
could
you.
probably make it happen.
I feel you.
We'll see. We'll see. Call me in 30 years, bro. I'll let you know. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
That'll be like, you know, sole focus. But as soon as I turn 55, golf course
I
every
don't
day.
blame. I don't blame you. Golf is good, like you said, because you can do it your whole life. So I don't blame you.
I need something that keeps me a little more active, though. I mean, golf's fine. I love walking. Keeps me engaged. That's why I love baseball and golf. I'm a very like strategic mindset type of
Yeah.
person. So golf and baseball are great for that. I mean, they do have I think it's over 26 league, like fast pitch league in Richmond,
Hmm.
but like that's for dudes that played like Division two and didn't get drafted or whatever. Or like you know what I mean. Like I don't know if
Yeah.
I could compete with that. I would want to play fast pitch. I'm not as invested in the idea of softball. I think I would play, but I like in fast pitch, it's harder to hit. I think that's half of baseball is the pitcher batter duel. You know what I mean? And then
Yeah.
everything else is strategic. But I want to play with guys that are throwing like 75 or 80 miles an hour, which
Yeah.
would be around probably what I could do again. I don't know. If I worked up to it, I bet you I could hit like, I don't know. That'd be a tough question. Maybe 87, 88, I bet you I could throw. Maybe 90. But that would
That's
take me
solid.
but it's because of my frame. Like I have a long wingspan. It would take me 2 years to get back to the point where I could do that, and I'd have to like specifically train upper body, shoulder mobility, all that stuff. But I think
Yeah.
I could do that. It would take a long time. Maybe I'll do a TikTok series. You know, the quest to
Get
throw a 90
famous,
mile an hour fastball after having UCL surgery and not properly rehabbing it 9 years ago. That's what I'm
yeah.
calling.
I'd follow it. I'd watch. I'd
Oh
stay
my
tuned.
god. You know, I did throw the football this past weekend a good amount, and my shoulder hurt, not my elbow. So that's a good sign that I do a lot of the internal external stuff. So
Yeah, there you go. The
yeah,
right thing's hurting.
yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah,
Uh,
shoulder mobility's awful, man, awful. Like that stretch where you put your arm up behind your back. I can go like
yeah,
my low back with my right arm.
mine's pretty bad as well. But thank God that's one joint I have held together so far. So I'm gonna try to keep it
Yeah.
keep it
Yeah, I haven't had any serious shoulder issues either. I'll also knock on wood. Uh,
down.
but yeah, and considering the stress I've put on my shoulder, I'd like
hmm
to say that's pretty good,
Yeah,
honestly.
yeah, for sure. Especially for a baseball guy, baseball
16 years
and
of baseball.
yeah, it was very good.
Yeah, I mean, dicking around the backyard, throwing football, wiffle ball, kickball, whatever else I'm throwing,
Yeah,
because it's not the natural way the arm moves. That's why softball pitchers can pitch 26 games a season. You know what I mean?
yeah.
In like
I hadn't
13
even
in
thought
a row.
about that, to be
Yeah,
honest.
the natural body movement of the arm is underhand, so that's why they can throw basically unlimited.
Never,
Your
yeah,
arm your arm tendon is not supposed to stress like that. It's not supposed to bend that way when you like
yeah.
throw a baseball or throw a football.
Never gonna get 90 out of a underhand, though.
That's
Gotta
true.
test the limits.
That's true. Did you see that kid threw 82 in the Little League World Series this
I
year?
heard about that. Yeah,
That's
that's
unbelievable.
yeah.
That's a
I think
36
about that
feet.
sometimes, like the progression of athletics and sports seems to continue to climb, and I don't know where that line is and where human beings physically cannot break it, without steroids or something like that, but it just
Oh,
continues to climb. And
interesting note on that vein. I've talked about it twice on here. I'm actually extremely excited because I love both health and I love athletics. And
yeah,
I'm interested in that exact same question. So in
got to
2026,
start
they have
juicing.
something, they have something called the Enhanced Games.
Oh, I heard about that
Have you
actually.
heard about that?
Yeah.
And they're allowing the players to use whatever substance they want as long as you know, um, it's all administered and overseen by a medical professional.
hmm
And they take EKGs the day of the events. They have body monitors and stuff on them, so they're tracking their overall biometrics and their biological health. We
Yeah.
don't know what the long-term effects of some of these drugs are or these things, substances, and what they do, but it's super interesting to me because it's more of like, what can the human body do given all of the right chemicals that we've invented or what is it, synthesized over the years? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It poses an interesting question. Like, what is the human body capable of when it's juiced to
Yeah.
its max? Which is wild, and I would never put that shit into my body. Probably some of it, depending on. Okay, I've heard controversial opinions on some of the peptides and some of the substances they're using that may prove to be beneficial once there's enough research behind it. But I don't think I would put it into my body until I knew what it is and what its effects are, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I read a little bit about the peptides. As far as I'm concerned, it's not. I mean, it's not a steroid. I heard about it for the first time maybe 2 years ago. I think it was another podcast or something. But as far as I'm aware, it's not a steroid. And every
It's a
scientific
naturally
article I've
occurring substance, isn't
yeah,
it?
everything I've read about it seems to indicate it's beneficial with with very limited downside, and one of those things where it's not synthetically created, like you said. And so I don't take anything or do anything like that myself, but it's definitely, it might be the next. Everybody's finding a little edge here and there in sports in general, so that might be the next progression, the next step. But
Yeah, I've heard that's what they're doing because there's one called BPC 157, and it's a
I've heard that one. Yeah.
muscle regeneration peptide, regenerative. So I think that's kind of what like McCaffrey got in Germany with like probably like some stem cells and something like that, you know, some sort of concoction that let the tendons heal. I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I've again, I'm only following the sources of these streams of sources that are reporting positive things. So that's what's hard.
Mhm.
Like I want published medical data to come out on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Hunter and I are actually starting. You met Hunter, I believe. We're starting a series where we investigate something. It's called "How Do We Get Here?" And the first one we're
Yeah.
doing is about ibogaine. If you've heard of that, it's
Isn't
like
that
a
the
hallucinogenic.
okay? Yeah.
It's a
I was
shrub
gonna say something
from like Western
something
Africa or something.
drug related.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's like a medicinal herb that's been used widely throughout the years for like tribal expeditions and things of that nature, you know, in
Hmm.
indigenous peoples. Whereas in the 60s and 70s and even 80s in the United States, they started doing a bunch of research and they found that it could not cure, but like effectively combat opioid dependency. So, you know, heroin or crack addicts.
Yeah.
Most notably, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of other substances, weird ones out there. I've heard of like crocodile bath salts, like shit like that. But you know, it subsides the need or the dependency on on a substance like that. But
I did hear it was an addiction killer. So, people with severe alcoholism, anything like
mhm,
that, something
yeah,
like that. And supposedly it's supposed to be effective within like 24, 48 hours, something like that. Something very drastic, something very quick.
yeah. And the thing is, like, the problem that I don't know enough about it because I feel like there's
Yeah.
not enough information out there. So I don't know. I feel like what is it? The 74, the Nixon Controlled Substances Act kind of fucked everything up. Not that I don't think I'll put that out there now. Not that I don't think a lot of these things are bad and should not be used. Uh,
Yeah.
you know, to be clear, but like it labels it at something, and then since like the 70s when that happened, there's been no real new research on it. When we could have been looking into
Yeah.
this for the last 40 years and at least try to figure it out, maybe understand it, you know. I don't know. I think it has a lot to do with the cartel business and stuff like that too. But
This is gonna turn into a 5-hour podcast. We can talking about that, but no, I agree. I think the U.S. is a unique country in a sense that we are supposed to have state of the art pharmaceuticals, all that kind of stuff. But then again, anything that is considered outside of the norm, whether it is beneficial or not, is pretty much legally barred. So whether something could help you out is almost unknown because any sort of testing or something like that you could do at large scale is not attainable. um, and where other countries, like they have those drugs readily accessible, but maybe they're not manufactured as good as they could be here, or something, just something like that, where U.S. is in a little bit of a it's an interesting position just because of that conflict and conflicts of
yeah,
interest, like you mentioned as well.
yeah, I think money is the largest
I agree
pollinator.
with that too. I mean, you think about it, if any pharmaceutical company um, accomplished their goals of eradicating most of these diseases, they wouldn't have a product to sell anymore. So that's another 5-hour tangent there. But
Yeah, we talked about that quite a bit too, man. It's like I don't know. It's you know what I'll take away from that? It's awesome for me to hear you have that opinion completely separate of me bringing it up. You know what I mean? It
yeah,
makes me feel like people as a whole are kind of on the same wavelength about this kind of stuff. Like what's
yeah,
going on? Why do we have these billions and billions of dollar companies lobbying and throwing money in senators' pockets to get these drugs passed? Or
yeah,
these random items, not random items. Like, so good example. I had a buddy on, I think episode 12. Mackenzie is a commercial beekeeper, or was. He's no longer doing that. He's now, oh my God, I don't want to say this wrong. I think he's like a apiary consultant or something like that now. He consults on
Okay.
beekeeping. So he said that they tried to get something patented in the United States with, was it the royal jelly from bees, and it's a substance that apparently has very many uses and effects and can be used to increase your quality of life. Let's just put it
Yeah.
that way. If you want to listen to that tidbit, I'm pretty sure he did explain that in that episode. So go back and listen to it. But anyway, he told me the process was unbelievable to try to get anything passed through the FDA unless you know
Yeah.
somebody or you have a large enough scale that you're trying to import, export, or get through to consumers. He said the fees were outrageous, the timeline was ridiculous, and he's like, in no reasonable scale, he's in Canada, so in no reasonable scale could he sell this product to people in the United States. He's like, it wasn't even worth the effort as a small business to
Yeah.
try to do that. So that kind of
Yeah.
disappoints me too, you know?
That's another direction you could take that as well. I think while it is vital to have agencies to monitor that kind of stuff, whether it's creation of drugs, distribution of drugs, anything like that, I also think the amount of bureaucracy in the country, even nowadays around, little things is not necessary and um, an annoyance to say the least. But I mean, you're completely right. A lot of these industries, if you're a small business, don't bother, you know, because it's going to cost more than you'll ever make back in the first decade.
And it's tough because I think the general public and people that do create these things for local areas are trying to make a positive impact on their local
Yeah,
environment, the people that they know.
I
They're
agree.
trying to do the right thing, pay the high school kids that are working at their Italian ice stand. They're trying to pay them $15 an hour so they can afford to keep up with everything. They're trying to pay them a reasonable wage or like help out their community in certain ways and not price gouge or do this or that. But it makes it so hard in the stage of capitalism we are now for those businesses to succeed, you know?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, it's tough, man. Tough world we live in. I would love to be an entrepreneur. Just to find that vein is what I'm waiting for.
Yeah,
Construction's good, man. It's very, very lucrative. I think there's a lot of opportunity. There's less people coming out of technical schools than there ever was. You know what I mean? Like we're not getting the labor that we need. It's tough. The industry is not shrinking because there's always going to be construction happening, new things being
yeah,
built, money being
for
spent,
sure.
improvements in every single city across, the United States and even Alaska, Hawaii. Hawaii construction materials are wild. I mean, everything there is so expensive because you got to import everything. But
Yeah,
I think it's a good space to be. Um, if I could pick any career path that I could choose, I would do this, and I would do sports radio hosting, and I would announce sporting
yeah,
events
yeah,
just because I can. Like that would be awesome. Like if I didn't have to do anything but like find the way that I could best contribute to society and everything else was taken care of, that's what I would do. But
yeah, for
I'm
sure.
realistic. I'm 27. Like I know what's up, man. I know I need to put bread on the table, for lack of a better phrase, both in the terms of food and money. But
Yeah,
you need to have spending power to do the things that you want to do. So
yeah,
it's a tough situation we're caught in, and I feel like even for the younger generation with oh man, you don't even get me started on like the social media impacts and what we're starting to see now because we grew up. Did you have like a flip phone in middle school, high
yeah,
school?
yeah. My first phone, I didn't get a phone until later, which was, looking back on it, if I was a parent, I wouldn't get my kid a phone either.
Yeah.
But I first phone I had was an LG Rumor Cut. So it was the step right after the flip phone. It had the keyboard, the
Yep.
slide keyboard, the text. I thought that was the coolest thing.
Yep.
But that was my first phone.
Yep. I had something like that, and I convinced my parents. I think I made like a PowerPoint, the whole 9 yards, because I was playing football at the time in middle
Yeah,
school, and I played 1 year. I think I played in. I can't remember if I played as a freshman in high school. I was on like the freshman team. I didn't even make the JV team. So I think that's also where I was. I was always tiny, man, until like junior year of high school. So, senior year of high school, I finally grew. I was like
yeah,
in between like 5 foot and like 5'4" going into freshman year of high school. So
Yeah.
I was a little guy, but
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I lost my train of thought just thinking about about that. I can't imagine because when we were like 12, I'll get into this really quick. We went to Cooperstown Dreams Park, it was a baseball tournament in New
Yeah.
York. Cooperstown's where the Professional Baseball Hall of Fame is, Major League Baseball, and we were playing with kids that were giants, man, like huge, like 6'1", 5'10". You know, these
Yeah.
men almost at that point. They'd hit puberty and and I'm 12 and I'm like this tiny little kid running around. I'm scrappy, man, and I'm logistical. Like I understand the strategy behind baseball. That's what made me good. I was
Yeah.
never more powerful or stronger than any of the other players. And I think if I would have worked at it, I would have been, and I should have gotten in the gym and I think increased my physical dominance in terms of sport.
Yeah.
I think that would have definitely helped me, but I think I was more discouraged by the fact that I was always tiny. So I had to find ways around the strength and physicality aspect. And now I'm 6'3", 220 and not small anymore. So
Yeah.
it's hilarious throwing a football because I can stand and throw it like 25 yards in the air now. And back in my heyday of athletics, I couldn't
Yeah.
get that far. So,
It
so
is.
it's,
Yeah. Athletics is a little funny because it does benefit the quick maturers, the quick growers, a lot. So I understand that for sure.
yeah, it's just wild, man. Like just the contrast. And then you go to college and now I'm finally grown, but like seeing the college athletes, to me now they look like children, but like back then, you know what I mean? It's intimidating.
Yeah, it even yeah. I mean even still because this is something I know I'm not the only one that thinks this, but when I was growing up, everyone older than me was bigger, stronger, faster, taller, looked older. I remember being in 6th grade and the 8th grade football players, they were 6 feet already. They were working out already. One of them, not all of them, one of them was growing facial hair already.
Yeah.
And I'm 12 and I'm like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
And I know that people were bigger when we were coming up because I still remember all their heights, weights. I still had
Hmm.
that like ingrained in my brain.
Yeah, sure.
We had a my senior, or excuse me, my freshman year of high school, we had a senior who he played offensive line at UVA, and he was 6'6" and a half, 6'7" coming out of high school. The two inside linebackers that we had at my high school, one was 6'2", 240. The other was 6'3", 235. In high school, these are high school linebackers, and so that's when I was like, all right, I gotta attain that. And by the time I was going to college, like I said, I had briefly made it up to 230. I was a little shorter, so I was a 6'1". But I noticed, I was like, okay, people my age are a little bit smaller than that. And then I looked at the underclassmen and I was like, I feel like these kids aren't that big. But then I went to college, same type of thing. Everyone is huge. I try to be big as well. I was a little bit smaller than those huge guys. Some of the biggest people I've seen in my life were on those recruiting visits. And I've
Yeah.
been to NFL practices, NFL games, and NFL
Yeah.
dudes are huge. But I've seen some college offensive linemen that were the biggest human beings I've ever seen in my life.
Oh
But
yeah.
it is weird. It is weird. You look at high schoolers and college players now, they are just smaller. And I don't know if it is a genetic
Age.
thing. I don't know if it's a
Age.
maybe age, but we were the same age and we were bigger. And it's
True.
very I don't know what it is, but I noticed it all growing up and I noticed it now. You compare heights and weights of guys at the same age and they're smaller now. And I don't know if it's style of play either.
Interesting.
Like some of the
Yeah.
quarterbacks, a lot of the you think about these guys, Peyton Manning, he's 6'6", he's just big quarterback stand in the pocket. And now you got guys who are faster, mobile, but they're like 6'1", you know?
Yeah. Kyler Murray.
Um, so maybe it's just changes in game style or something like that. But it is weird to look at those numbers and look back at the changes.
Do you think kids that are 6'4", 235 are trying to play quarterback now instead of going to linebacker? Is that
Maybe
something
not.
for more
That's a good
money?
question,
You know?
honestly. Um, I don't know. That's a good question, to be honest. Especially now that their quarterbacks are faster, more nimble. Could be a position change thing too. That's very very true.
Yeah. Wild, dude. Wild. Yeah. I
It
don't
is
know, man.
wild to look back on.
I finally got the chance. So my mom moved to Richmond here recently, and she brought home like all my trophies and stuff, and like all of my memorabilia from all the sports teams and everything. And as I, start to hang it up around the pod room, you reminisce. I mean, it's nostalgic, man. It's like thinking
Of
about
course,
all
yeah.
that, and like just talking to somebody that you have more experience in athletics than I did is cool. Hearing what you have to say about that whole experience, because looking back on it, I wish I would have done that. But then again, like, you make a choice for a reason. And I think all these things
Yeah,
happened out, and, I'm very happy where I am now. But I would have liked to play more sports. And, like, I really appreciate your perspective on that. And it just makes
yeah,
me think about the last, 15 years of baseball and golf in
yeah,
high school and
for
all that shit.
sure.
All
Yeah,
of that.
for sure.
Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, high school golf, dude. Yeah, I played golf and baseball. They tried to get me to play volleyball. They started a men's volleyball team my senior year, and I was like, "Nah, man." My coach didn't want me to play. Nah, man. I might get hurt, whatever. And I even played first base, and that's when I hurt my arm. I was trying to take
Yeah,
precautions against it. But
yeah.
like it's similar to you, we had a new coach coming in freshman year, so the old guys were out that had coached the team. I'm from small town Pennsylvania, so
Hmm.
not quite as big of a high school. Not as quite, I think we were, I can't remember how many A's we were in the PIAA, but like less than larger schools in the area, so to speak.
Yeah,
And we had gotten this awesome new coach, young guy, brought in a whole new system, had some collegiate connections, like did showcases and camps and ran us on an actual program, strength training. We had separated practices for type position players and everything like that. And then 1 year in, I was on the JV team because I was a freshman, still tiny. They called me out for playoffs, so I got to sit through that, which was cool. But of course, has a great season. The school next to us is like, "Hey, we'll offer you a bunch of money to come here." He's out. They couldn't find anybody to fill the spot. So they rehired the old coaches that did not want to be there. And like the rest of my high school baseball experience was basically me having fun with my buddies who I played baseball with for 12 years at that point. You know what I mean? Because
that is. Yeah,
we ran the team ourselves for the most part. The coach would
yeah.
the lineups. Like they'd just hang out and they'd be like, "All right, go stretch."
That
And we
is
just
some of the best. That's some of the best parts, though. Playing
yeah.
with your boys.
Yeah, it was so much fun. Don't get me wrong, I would never take that back, but that probably had something to do with my injury at the end of the year and stuff
Yeah,
like that, not taking it quite as seriously. But I don't know, enjoyed
yeah,
every moment of it, so no complaints
yeah,
there, of course. But yeah, it makes me wonder what would have happened if the other coach would have stayed. Again, hindsight's 2020. Think about it all you want, but
exactly, exactly.
yeah, all
Very
that
true.
fun stuff. But
Yep.
all right, before we get going here, the pinnacle topic, which I brought you on to talk about, because you told me before we left the last time I saw you, I think we had a brief conversation about. I was like, "Oh my god, I'm having you on the podcast so we can talk about it."
Yeah,
So I just want to know what your general thoughts are on cryptocurrency. I currently hold about like 10 different coins. I'm primarily in Bitcoin and Ethereum. I have a little Solana, a little XRP. I have a little like Avalanche, Chainlink, some of like the larger ones in the top 50 market
yeah.
cap. But what's your general thought on that? Is a viable alternative to the fiat currency we currently run today with the US dollar?
Well, your last question, that's a interesting interesting concept. I think so I got into it really 2020, 2021.
Yeah,
So
same here.
I'm fairly newer to it than a lot of these other guys out there are. Um, but I've pretty much been watching it. That I've been watching it in other markets pretty religiously for the past 4 years, 5 years.
Hmm.
Um, so I can give you from my perspective what I've seen and read. I would say to answer your last question first, is it a good alternative? I think my personal perspective, I don't know if it will ever be something that is traded day to day, just like a cash dollar bill is. But I do think it is something that, as far as I've seen, it is non-corruptible in the sense that everything that occurs on those markets, on those ledgers, on any of that stuff is something that everyone can observe, and it is also
Yep.
something that is non-corruptible in the sense that a government cannot come in and take ownership of it and or um, print more of it. And I think print more of it is the biggest
I agree.
edge now, especially. I think, I mean, I've seen a lot of statistics, read a lot of charts, read a lot of graphs. I think somewhere between 20 and 25% of the entire US money supply was printed around 2020 to 2022.
I
And
believe.
if you think that, if anybody thinks that that is just going to have an impact for a year or two and then things will go back to normal, I think that person is incorrect. So a lot of times, the best way I like to think about it or look at it is when people look at charts of um, mostly Bitcoin. I just talk about Bitcoin initially.
Right.
They see the price slowly go up over time. It has bear markets, bull markets, like most things do. But I encourage most new people who are not into it really is to look at Bitcoin kind of as a straight line and watch the dollar and every other currency go down in comparison to it. Because in reality, I think that's what's happening. Rather than looking at the price of what the Bitcoin is, look at how much more money it costs to buy one. And that is kind of my main theory going into it in 2020, 2021 was discovering
Yep.
it, looking at it, being like, okay, this seems legitimate so far. And then watching everything play out, watching the government just destroy the overall valuing of a single dollar over these 5 years alone. It has only kind of reinforced my perspective in general. I had the unfortunate timing of putting money into it in 2021.
Yep. That's
Um,
exactly my entry point. November of 2021.
bro, you want to talk about bad timing?
I bought it
I got
like
in.
500.
Yeah, I got into Bitcoin and everything else at not its all-time high at all. But then I discovered Ethereum as well in November of 2021 when it was $4,600, and
Yeah.
I was like, "This seems great. This seems like a great
Hey,
idea right
you're
now."
finally making money if you
I
held it.
know, but yeah, that was the thing. 2022, 2023. I asked myself a very simple question because I was negative, obviously. I asked myself, do I think these assets or coins, whatever you would like to call them, do I think these are going to zero? And if the answer is no, then the likelihood of them going back up is almost 100%. So I waited and I waited and I watched them go all the way down and sit there. And then I decided to put more money in. And I just continued to dollar cost average
Yep.
really up until kind of last year, and then have been able to watch them grow as they continue. I think a lot of cryptocurrencies are, some of them tout technology, some of them discussed bridging software, application use. I think certain ones are viable. I think 98% of them are stupid. But I mean, I'm sure you've seen developments as of this year alone, or I guess last year maybe, where people are now gambling with them for fun, trading with them for fun, and the rise in DX screener and phantom wallets, and anybody can make it big if they click a few buttons in the correct order on their phone.
Hmm.
So I think that's enticed a lot of new people as well. Every crypto bull cycle brings in new people for different reasons. You had NFTs in 2021. People who originally wouldn't be interested were suddenly interested. You have meme coins now. People who are not interested are suddenly interested, and I think at least some of them stick around for future cycles and future progress.
Yeah. Yeah. I just don't think enough people have read enough information on it and how it's differing from the US dollar. And I
Yeah,
don't think we're seeing general retail investors, for the large part, get into it yet. I think people are still hesitant.
Yeah, for sure. And I think this is another thing. I think if you have money already, maybe put 5% maximum, and something like
Or
that.
a
If
little bit.
you are
Yeah,
someone,
I'm a little more than that. I'm like 9%, but
you don't want to hear it. You don't want to hear what my percent is. But if you are someone who is our age, who will never buy a house on a salary under 150 or 200K, which no, none of us are making at this point, um, it is an alternative way to grow your wealth if you do it intelligently and if you time it effectively. That last
yep.
part, I think, is important. I think um, you could max out at an all-time high and get absolutely destroyed and lose most of your income, or you can be patient, watch it, observe it, and if you think it is at a low level, put some in, see how it works out for you. I do think, though. You say what?
I say I'm waiting to see what this year does. I'm very interested to see what the end of this year looks like.
Yeah, me too. I have some predictions, but I don't know how they'll play out. Most people speak
Well,
about the predictions and they do the
well,
opposite. So
if you want to talk about them, I'll give you an estimate. This episode will get released in December.
wow. Okay. Let's see if I'm right. If I'm right, you have to have me back on. How about that?
I'll have you back on either way, and we'll talk about it. But yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, fair enough. I don't think this cycle. So I think diminishing returns, especially in Bitcoin, is a legitimate thing. So I think last cycle Bitcoin it peaked from its all-time high of 20,000 to 60. So that was a 3x. So I predicted a little bit less, maybe a 2 to 2.5. So it maxed out at 124 so far. I don't think it breaks 135 this cycle. I
A
think
lot of shorts,
um,
term shorts will get liquidated at 125, so that'll cause a big down spike, won't it? As the
um, so I mean, it depends on if a short gets liquidated, it has a lot of pressure to move up. So I think if those in fact do get liquidated, it jumps to maybe 127, 128,
yeah,
something like that. But a couple of the other ones, I have money in XRP, but I don't follow price movement as much. I don't
sure.
think that breaks $5. Just simple market cap. Um, the thing that new people always talking about all the time is they're like, oh well, XRP's a few dollars,
It's only $3.
but I'm like, price correlation has nothing to do with, or price is not, like that has nothing to do with what it's going to be, because you look at overall market cap of a coin. If XRP was at $20, it would it would be more than like, it'd be in the trillions and
I
trillions of
I
dollars.
think they're what, like 200 billion or something silly, and they're at $3. So if it went to $20
Exactly.
and 7 times that, I mean, they're in the
Exactly.
Bitcoin's at like 2.1 trillion ish, and they'd
Yeah.
be overtaking Bitcoin at that point, which
Exactly.
could happen, maybe.
I don't think
I
anything
think the
overtakes it.
likelihood is less than. See, here's the other argument though. Like, Bitcoin is already very expensive. You can only afford fractional shares. When your 30 coins of XRP hit $21, I don't know. I'd have to do the math behind it.
21's a lot of
No,
a lot
no,
of
no,
money.
no.
But
I'm in it too high for XRP, but I'm in over $2. So I'm just holding
yeah,
it now.
no,
Uh,
I understand that. I don't think it breaks. We'll say middle of the road. I don't think it breaks 550. I think because Ethereum's pretty hot right now. I think
yes.
Ethereum continues to climb. I think it moves towards 10,000. I think it gets pretty close. I don't think it breaks 10,000.
Yeah.
If it does, 12 is a max. I think 12,000
Yeah.
is max.
That would be crazy.
Yeah, you have people calling for like 60K
Yeah.
Ethereum, and now like like it's not logical. It's not a logical argument.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I don't know. I've been watching it a lot. I don't think it's the end all be all, but I think it's a very good asset to be in if you do it intelligently for people our age, for sure.
Sure. So one last question before we let you go here for your fantasy football draft.
Appreciate it.
how do you hold your coins? Do you hold them in a cold storage wallet or do you have them on an exchange? Because I got boned by an exchange back in 2021. They filed Chapter 13, and I only got 35% of my coin value
What were
back.
you on? What were you on? It wasn't
Uh,
FTX, was it?
Voyager.
Yeah, so exchanges are risky, and I started with Coinbase. So
Yep.
I started with an exchange. So 2022, when exchanges were crumbling, I was like, okay. At that time, I was like 24, 25. So I was like, if this blows up, I have the rest of my life, you know? So I gambled with it a little bit to the point where I was like, I'm going to hold this because the reason I picked Coinbase is because it seemed to be the most logically secure. And I was investing in stock markets. And Coinbase in 2021 had just, I think, I don't know if IPO is the right word, but they had just gone public into the stock market, and they had to be audited by all these, all these divisions of the government, like SEC and all, had to look at their books in order for them to go public on the stock market. So I knew if they had been audited already, it couldn't be that bad. If they blew up, it would be due to other errors, not the fact that they were embezzling money or, an FTX scenario where they just weren't you know how that went. But so that was my analysis was okay, this company has been looked at least a little bit.
Sure.
It's got to be one that's good enough for now. I think it is smarter to have money on a cold wallet or a ledger or something. Don't forget your keys or anything that you need, But I don't know. A lot of people say that, not your keys, not your wallet, right? Pretty common phrase.
Yeah, I've been looking into Trezor is what I've been looking at. I think I'm going to purchase
Pretty
that later
popular.
this year. Yeah, because it's open source software. They haven't really had any real issues that I've found on the internet. Maybe they've scrubbed them all, but it seems to be pretty good, safe and secure. And I have a safe at home, and I'll keep my seed phrase in two spots. I'll
Yes, sir.
hide it somewhere,
Sir.
and then
We'll
maybe.
have to see. We'll have to see how my predictions turn out.
Yes, that'll be exciting.
But
I'll probably get to editing around the late stages of November, early December. So I'll be texting you for information around then. But yeah, man, awesome. I
yeah,
can't believe it's already been an hour and a half. I was going to
I
ask you
know.
about the
Yeah.
stock market too because I wanted to talk about that, and I feel like you're knowledgeable in that realm. But we'll have to get to that next time.
Yes, sir. I appreciate the call. I appreciate the invite. It's been a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. Next time though, maybe we'll plan a weekend, get you to Richmond, get you in the
Yeah.
Slanted Attic Experience podcast room, have a couple beers, catch up beforehand. Um, the classic, the usual.
I'll do that. I'll come up for you.
Perfect. Because Jacob's going
Yes,
to be
sir.
back here sometime soon.
There you go. Let's
Yeah.
hope. Let's hope.
Yes. Yes. Oh, he told me he was. So we'll see. We'll see what happens there. But anyways, appreciate it again, brother. It was awesome chatting with you. And
Yes, sir.
yeah, thanks everybody for listening. You can find us on traditional social medias, your Instagram, Twitter, formerly known as Twitter, now X, Threads, Blue Sky, all these new ones, TikTok, I'm on that, YouTube, and Spotify. So we're Slanted Attic, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.